Hello students, myself Mr. Arun Jadhav, Environment Education Teacher, and welcome to all of you in our Navakokan Education Society's DBJ College Chipalun. In our first session, previous lecture, we have talked about seminars, journal assignments, and project work. In project work, we have studied project report writing with an example. Today, we are going to start with our first lesson in our textbook. First lesson is humans and environment. And here are the points that we are going to study in our first lesson, humans and environment. First point is population growth, in which we are going to learn some basic concepts regarding population growth. Second point is about rural and urban settlements, in which we are going to discuss environmental issues regarding rural and urban areas. Third point is indigenous community and traditions. In this third point, we are going to learn how is traditional indigenous knowledge useful in conservation of environment. Fourth point is about environment and health, in which we are going to learn how is environment related to our health. And the last point is right to live, human rights and value education, in which we are going to learn all the three concepts: right to live, human rights and value education. So this is all about the points involved in our first lesson. In this session, we are going to study first point, that is population growth, in which, as told earlier, we are going to start with definition of population growth. Then we'll discuss three major cultural changes humans have gone through and their impacts on human life. Then we will discuss some definitions of the terms, and in the end of this session we will study demographic transition and population pyramids. In demographic transition, we'll discuss four phases of demographic transition, and in population pyramids, we'll discuss three types of population pyramid. So let us start with the first point, population growth. Definition of the population growth is: population growth is an increase in the number of individuals in an area. So increase in number of individuals in a population in an area is nothing but population growth. In simple words, we can say rise in number of individuals in an area. So this is the definition of population growth. If we talk about emergence of humans on the earth, then humans have emerged on the earth 3 million years ago. Until about 12,000 years ago, humans were mostly hunters and gatherers who typically moved as they needed to find enough food for the survival. Since then, there have been three major cultural changes. And these three cultural changes are: first is agricultural revolution, which began about 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. Second is industrial revolution, which began about 275 years ago. And the third is information and globalization revolution, which began about 50 years ago. Let us talk about all the three revolutions in detail. Let us start with first agricultural revolution, which began about 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. Agricultural revolution is basically a transition in human history from small nomadic bands of hunters gatherers to larger agricultural settlements and early civilization. Agricultural revolution is the shift of humans from hunting and gathering to agriculture. This revolution had changed humanity forever, as humans started doing agricultural practices and settled down in larger groups. So this revolution has caused major changes in human life. So this is all about agricultural revolution. Now the second revolution is industrial revolution, which began about 275 years ago. Industrial revolution is a basically transition from handcrafts to mechanical production. This transition includes going from hand production methods to machines, new chemical manufacturing and iron production processes, the increasing use of steam power and water power, the development of machine tools, and rise of mechanized factory systems. Industrial Revolution is the change that began in England and then spread throughout Europe. 1750 to 1850 is the first phase of Industrial Revolution. In 18th and 19th century, the use of machinery in the production process using steam power and manpower began in Europe. This led to an unprecedented rise in the rate of population growth. So this is all about industrial revolution which boosted the population growth. And the third revolution is information and globalization revolution. Information revolution is basically development of technologies such as computers, digital communications, microchips, etc. in the second half of 20th century that has led to dramatic reductions in the cost of obtaining, processing and storing and transmitting information in all forms. And today we all are experiencing benefits of this information revolution. So these are the three major cultural changes humans have gone through. Now after studying these three cultural changes, let us discuss the impacts which are caused due to these three major revolutions. Now the impacts of these three major revolutions are: first is they provided much more energy and new technologies. Humans got much more energy and new technologies due to these cultural changes. Now, due to these changes, humans have got much more energy and new technologies, and with the help of more power and new technologies, humans have altered the natural planet to greater extent. Humans have done this to meet their basic needs and increasing demands. With the changing lifestyle, demands are increasing, and to fulfill these demands, humans have started exploiting the natural planet. So this is the very important impact caused due to agricultural, industrial and information revolution. In this change, humans got much more power, and with the power and technology, humans have altered the natural environment. Now the second important impact is these changes allowed expansion of human population, growth in human population because of increased food supply. So in this second stage, in which population was grown, now with development in agricultural sector and expansion of farmlands, food production increased to greater extent. Due to development in agriculture and expansion of farmlands, agricultural production was increased, and on the other hand, due to development in healthcare sector, lifespan has gone up. People became more health conscious. As agricultural production was increased and on the other hand agriculture health sector also improved, both these things boosted the population growth. So this is how population growth took place due to major cultural changes. Now the third important impact is increased human environmental impacts. Humans' impact on environment are increased. Now, to meet our basic needs and growing demands, we are exploiting resources. And as we are using resources in larger amount, it has resulted in various environmental issues like pollution, global warming, acid rain, ozone depletion, etc. Due to growing industrialization and intensive agriculture, we have degraded our environment. So these are the three major impacts caused due to cultural changes. Now, after talking about these three impacts, let us talk about basic terms regarding population. So here are the definitions of basic terms. First is birth rate, which is also called as natality. Now, birth rate or natality is nothing but the number of live births per thousand population in a given year. Birth rate or natality is nothing but number of live births per thousand people in a year. Now the second concept is the death rate, which is also called as mortality. Now death rate or mortality is nothing but number of deaths per thousand population in a given year. Mortality is nothing but number of deaths per thousand people. Third is growth rate. Growth rate is nothing but the number of persons added or subtracted from a population in a year due to natural increase and net migration. Now here growth rate can be positive or negative. When persons are added to a population, growth rate is positive, and when persons are subtracted from a population, growth rate can be negative. Now the next concept is doubling time. Now, doubling time means the number of years required for the population of an area to double its present size. So the number of years required to double the present size of population is nothing but doubling time. Fifth concept is carrying capacity, which is very important concept in environmental sciences. Carrying capacity means the maximum number of individuals of a species that an area can support. Many environmentalists, however, believe that there are definite limits to the growth and the Earth's carrying capacity. Nowadays, we often talk about Earth's carrying capacity, and majority of our discussions end with the conclusion that Earth has crossed its carrying capacity. The growing population has affected the carrying capacity of the planet, eventually resulting in a number of problems like inadequate resources, standard of living, unhygienic and improper sanitation facilities, etc. And today, due to this population pressure and human impacts on the nature or environment, natural elements like air, water and soil have been affected on a greater extent. Now, the next concept is ecological balance. Before going to talk about ecological balance, let me tell you what is meant by ecology. Ecology is nothing but a branch of science that deals with the study of relationship between living and non-living things. So ecology studies relation between living and non-living things. And ecological balance is the fine balance between living and non-living things, food webs and environmental conditions in an ecosystem. As living non-living things, food webs, food chain, environmental conditions, everything is there in an ecosystem. Therefore fine balance between these things is nothing but ecological balance. Now the seventh concept is population growth rate. Population growth rate is nothing but net annual percentage increase in population. So net annual percentage increase in population is nothing but population growth rate. And the last concept is exponential growth. Exponential growth is nothing but the growth of a quantity with time in such a way that curve is relatively flat in the beginning but becomes steeper and steeper with time. So in exponential growth, in initial stages, curve is flat and it becomes steeper and steeper with time. So this is all about exponential growth, and the here we have seen the definitions of various terms regarding population. Let us move to the next point, that is statistics of the population growth. By first C, so here are the figures. By first C, population of the globe was 170 million, means 17 crore. So there are 17 crore human beings on the earth by first C. From first C to 1000 CE, in the span of 1000 years, population of the globe was raised by 10 crore or 12 crore, and it has reached something about 27 to 30 crore. So in 1000, population of the globe was something around 27 to 30 crore. Now from 1000 CE to 2000 CE, in the span of 1000 years, next 1000 years, population increased from 30 crore to 600 crore. Population has crossed the number of 600 crore. Exact population in 2000 was 611 1.51 crore. If we talk about last 25 years of this span, then in 1975 to 2000, in the span of 25 years, population was increased by 200 crores. So if we look at the figures in between 1000 CE to 2000 CE, in the span of these 1000 years, population was increased almost by 570 crores. So in this time span, there was a huge growth in population. Especially in last 25 years also, population was raised by 200 crores. This may be because of green revolution, increased supply of agricultural yield, and modern healthcare facilities. So this is all about statistics of the population growth. Now after this, let us move to the next point, that is the graph showing rise in world's population over time. Now just before few minutes, we have seen the concept, that is exponential growth. Exponential growth is the growth of quantity with time in such a way that the curve is relatively flat in the beginning but becomes steeper and steeper with time. So here also we can see that the curve showing population growth is relatively flat in the beginning up to 1650, and it has become steeper and steeper after 1650 and has become parallel to y-axis. So this growth is nothing but exponential growth, and the curve showing such a growth is called as exponential curve. So this curve showing world's population is an exponential curve. So this is all about the world's population. After this, let us talk about demographic transition, one of the important concepts regarding human population. In demographic transition, there is a close relation between population growth rate and economic development. Due to improvement in economic conditions, natality means birth rate as well as mortality means death rate declined, resulting in low population growth rate in developed countries. And this process is known as demographic transition. So demographic transition is a phenomenon and theory which refers to the historical shift from high birth rates and high infant death rates in societies with minimal technology, education, especially of women, and economic development, to low birth rates and low death rates in societies with advanced technology, education, and economic development. So demographic transition is a shift from high birth rates and high death rates to the low birth rates and low death rates. Although this shift has occurred in many developed countries or industrialized nations, the theory and the models are frequently imprecise when applied to individual countries due to specific social, political, and economic factors affecting particular population. So this is all about demographic transition. This demographic transition occurs in 4 stages. There are 4 stages of demographic transition. The first stage of demographic transition is pre-industrial phase. In pre-industrial phase, harsh living conditions led to high birth rate and high death rate. Thus, there is a little population growth. So in pre-industrial phase, due to harsh living conditions, birth rate was high and death rate was also high. Actually, birth rate was high at that time to compensate high infant mortality. So in pre-industrial phase, birth rate and death rates both were high, due to which population growth was slow in pre-industrial phase. So population growth is typically very slow in this stage, pre-industrial phase, because the society was constrained by available food supply. Therefore, unless the society develops new technologies to increase food production, any fluctuation in birth rates are soon matched by death rates. So population growth was slow in pre-industrial phase due to high birth rates and high death rates. The second important phase is transitional phase. In transitional phase, as industrialization began, food production increased and healthcare improved. So in transitional phase, industrialization began, due to which food production increased and healthcare improved. The improvements specific to food supply typically include selective breeding, crop rotation, and farming techniques. Other improvements generally include access to technology, basic healthcare, and education. Due to this, that is due to high food production and improvement in healthcare sector, death rates dropped and birth rates remained high. So the population growth was rapid in this transitional phase. Countries like India, Bolivia, Saudi Arabia were in this category. I think India is still in this transitional phase as our population is continuously rising. So in transitional phase, birth rate was high and death rate was low. Death rate was low because of modern healthcare facilities, and birth rate was high because of increased food supply and expansions in the farm area, and due to which the population growth was rapid in transitional phase. Now the third phase is industrial phase. In industrial phase, industrialization was widespread. The birth rate drops and the death rate also decreases. So here in industrial phase, birth rates and death rates both are low. Reasons for this convergence of rates include better access to birth control, decline in the infant mortality rate, increased job opportunities for women, and increased investments in basic education for children and other social changes. Most developed countries are now in the third stage. This stage is characterized by sudden decline in birth rates and death rates. China and Indonesia are the examples of industrial phase, or they are in industrial phase. So in industrial phase, birth rates and death rates both are low, due to which population remains stable or constant, or there is little growth in a population. Now fourth is post-industrial phase. In post-industrial phase, the birth rates decline even further, equaling the death rates, and thus reaching a stable population growth. Most of the European countries are in this category. So in post-industrial phase, birth rates may drop to well below replacement level, that is death rates, as has happened in countries like Japan, Germany, Italy, leading to a shrinking population. As the birth rates has fallen down below death rates, so the population in these countries is reducing or shrinking. So here in post-industrial phase, birth rates and death rates are almost equal, or in some countries birth rate has fallen down below death rate, due to which population in the countries are either stable, or in some countries population has been reduced. So this is all about the fourth stage. So here we have seen all the four stages in demographic transitions: pre-industrial phase, transitional phase, industrial phase, and post-industrial phase. Now after studying demographic transition, let us move to the next part, that is population pyramid. Population pyramid is a plot of number of people belonging to various age groups. It's an important tool to understand a country's demographic situation. This information is very useful for the government to plan for improvement. The information that we get after studying population pyramid is useful for the government to plan for improvement. There are three types of population pyramids. First type is population pyramid for developing countries. In this type of population pyramid, there is large number of young population and proportion of old people is less. So here in this diagram we can see population of young people is very high as compared to population of old people. India is an example of such a kind of pyramid, where having large number of young people as compared to old people. India's 60% of a population is under 35 years of age. So this is all about pyramid for developing countries, in which population of young people is very high as compared to population of old people. Second type is pyramid for developed countries. So here in pyramid for developed countries, the birth rates and death rates are low. if we observe this diagram, then we can understand that the proportion of young people and old people is almost equal. So this is all about pyramid for developed countries. In this pyramid, birth rates and death rates both are low. Now the third type is urn shaped pyramid. In urn shaped pyramid, the proportion of pre-reproductive age group population is very small in comparison to the people belonging to reproductive age group. Now here if we observe this diagram, then we can understand that here percentage of the pre-reproductive age group is very low as compared to proportion of reproductive age group. So this is the pyramid called urn shaped pyramid. This represents the countries in post-industrial phase. Japan is an example of urn-shaped pyramid. In Japan, proportion of pre-reproductive age group is low as compared to productive age group. So this is all about three types of population pyramids. Now after studying population pyramids, let us have a look towards 10 most populated countries as of 2018. In the list of 10 most populated countries in the world, China is at first position with a total population of 142.8 crore. India is at second position with a total population of 135.3 crore, and United States is at third rank with a population of 32.7 crore. Now see the difference between population of the countries at second and third position. There is not big difference between first and second rank, but huge difference is there in the countries at second position and third position. Almost difference of more than 100 crore population is there in the countries at second and third position. Along with these countries, Indonesia, Brazil, Pakistan, Russia, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Mexico, these countries are also there in the list of top 10 most populated countries in the world. So this is the population of China and India and US. So this is all about top 10 populated countries. Now after studying top 10 populated countries, let us have a look towards demographics of China and India. This is the study conducted by Jeff Desjardins during January 2020, just before 6 months. I am telling you this because the figures in this study are really very interesting. Now see, in 1950, India's population was 0.38 billion and China's population was 0.55 billion. So here are the populations of both the countries in 1950. In 2019, India's population was 137 billion and China's population was 143 billion. Now, after 80 years, in 2100, India's population will rise to 1.64 billion. India's population will become 164 crore and China's population will be 140 crore. So here we can see that China's population is going to be reduced in 2100. Right now it is something about 143 to 145 crore, and after 80 years or in next few years China's population is going to be reduced, and in 2100 it will be 1.40 billion, means 140 crore. In 2150 India's population will be 1.45 billion, means 145 crore, and China's population in 2150 will be 106 crore, means 1.06 billion. So here are the interesting figures of population of India and China in future. So this study tells us how the population of India and China going to be changed in future. This is all about our first session. Let me remind you, in this session we have seen definition of population growth, major cultural changes, that is agricultural revolution, industrial revolution and information revolution, and the changes happened due to these revolutions. Then we have studied basic concepts regarding population and demographic transitions, and in the end of this session we have seen population pyramids. Thank you.